Find out whether a New York City resident has the Wuhan coronavirus.
The coronavirus pandemic.
The Wuhan coronavirus.
Hello, I am joined by my mother, who is also a nurse, and we're going to be talking about some stuff about COVID-19. My first question to you is, what do you think the outcome of this pandemic will be?
I'm hoping for a good outcome. You're talking about in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if people listen and comply by, wearing masks and hand washing and staying separate or social distancing, I think things hopefully will start to calm down. I think it got out of hand when we didn't really realize it was around and people were close together and people didn't know they had it or carriers and it was spreading. So hopefully it'll be under control now that we have also a protective equipment more in the hospitals and everywhere. I think that will also help, but I think it's going to be still a while. I don't think usually to find a vaccine, it could take a couple years, a year to 2 years. So just trying to stay healthy too. And especially for the people that have different diagnoses, like diabetes or any kind of lung or respiratory illness or anything already or chronic disease. It's very important for those people to stay safe. But yeah, I think it's still going to be around for at least 6 more months. That it could be. Here in Minnesota, they're saying we're going to peak out sometime between May into the summer possibly, but I think our social distancing and the quarantine here has definitely improved our situation here. But I don't know, hopefully not too many people lose their lives, and hopefully they'll get this thing under control, and eventually I think they'll have a vaccine, kind of like they do with the influenza A.
Influenza A, an acute, highly contagious respiratory disease caused by any of the 3 orthomyxoviruses.
It's just such a new virus, and it's just hitting people really hard and spreading so quickly. And then because it hits them respiratory where they can't breathe, that's a problem. So I think once they figure out everything, and we are learning new things every day, so I think it's just going to be kind of a day-by-day thing. But they'll come. I think it'll be a learning lesson for all of us. Yeah.
Next question is, when do you believe all of this will be over?
I don't know. It could be a year from now where it's actually, I don't think it's going to be over until they find a vaccine or a way to control it. I think that they're going to have to, the quarantine piece of it is probably going to open up where they'll allow little by little, they'll have certain businesses be able to open up. Right now it's just like necessary type places like stores and chiropractors and certain things, but I think they'll open up little by little to like dental office and other things, but they'll have to definitely have guidelines in place still to protect people. But I don't think it's going to be over until they find a cure, vaccine type thing, and know how to control it, because now they're saying that people that are being put on ventilators are dying more than if they didn't put them on there. So I think there's so many unanswered questions right now. Once they know for sure this is how we control this and this is how we can avoid people from dying and be able to save people, I think it's going to be a couple of years probably until they have a vaccine.
And do you think this will be as bad as the 1347 plague or even worse? The Black Death, also known as the plague, was the most fatal pandemic record in human history, resulting in the deaths of up to 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia and North Africa, peaking in Europe from 1347 to 1351. If you would compare that to the new pandemic going on in the world right now, there is 2.5 million confirmed cases of the coronavirus, only 175,000 deaths, and 686 have recovered.
I hope not. I think that we've have it under control. There are people actually that have recovered in Minnesota. I forgot. I think they had like in the hundreds of people. I think it was, I forgot how many people have been positive, maybe 1,800 or maybe it's been more, but out of that, I think half of them are, maybe a little less than half have recovered. So I think since we have caught it and have it under control, and people are, as long as they listen, I think people are understanding enough now that the social distancing and the hand washing and masking and being very careful, I think we'll have under control that many people won't die. I think it's more the people that are elderly and respiratory and other chronic diseases that are right now are dying. I mean, I know there's some other, even like people that are 30 with asthma, they could die too because they have asthma. But I think if everyone's being careful, I don't think it's going to turn out that bad. No, I think we have it under control enough that we are smart enough now in society to realize that this is very serious and we need to take control.
Do you believe that this is one of the biggest events that people will be talking about 10, 20, or even 30 years in the future? Something cool about this event is that it will be talked about in 30, 40, 50 years, or for the rest of the school system in the far future. Like, we are living in the future because this event, just like other events that have happened in the world, will be talked about for many years.
Yes, most definitely. I think the last biggest event that I can think of is 9/11, the Terrorist Act, but I've never experienced, I don't think anyone has, even my parents have experienced anything like this. It's just, it's crazy. I would never have guessed that this could ever happen to us, especially with how many resources we have medically and technology nowadays, that this could have ever happened. I don't know how it happened. It should have been prevented somehow to spread this quickly. Yeah, so it is shocking. It will be talked about for years to come throughout history, forever, on and on and on.
Do you believe that there is a cure, that there will be a cure?
Yeah, I believe there's a cure. Just some trying to figure out exactly how this disease works. They already have some theories about different things, and they are trying some things. I mean, there's not going to be anything that's regulated, that's approved yet. But I mean, they're trying things out on people that are willing to try it out. So, yeah, and I think they should try whatever you can right now, as long as they won't harm them any more than it will. But yeah, I think there'll definitely be a cure and hopefully a vaccination of some sort, kind of like influenza A.
Is there anything in your whole entire lifetime like this that's happened to you before?
No. Again, I would never have predicted anything like this ever. I would never predicted that they'd have a quarantine and shut down the schools. I mean, they barely shut down schools for snow days right now, so it's like now they have everything online, and everyone, all people's works, people out of work, and tons of people on unemployment, and I don't know how it's going to affect economically our country, but I mean, it's good that the country has come to help everybody too, and I think it's a real learning experience for everyone to realize that life, hey, life is short and things can stop your life from moving, but I think people are really there and reaching out to people and helping people out and bringing people food that need food, that can't leave their home. And so I do like that. I've seen a lot of goodness come out of people that you would never see before, and I see families being together more. And I mean, in a positive note, I think it's brought people closer as a society and as families. So I think that's good, and I think especially with teenagers and young kids that have been so much into technology, right? They haven't really stopped to do other things like board games or going on walks. People are appreciating more of real life, what life is about. So there's some positive things that are coming of it, but I just hope that here in Minnesota and all over that we get it under control, that it doesn't get out of hand like it is in New York. I have a friend out in New York right now, and they're losing people by hundreds and thousands out there. So I just hope it doesn't get to that point.
Do you think that this might even be a wake-up call for some people? Because if you do look at the bright side, there has been lots of less pollution.
There's that too. Yeah, they showed that. That's amazing. That
In California is now the least state that has the least amount of pollution, which is actually crazy for Los Angeles and California as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a good wake-up call for that, the pollution, and then for New York is such a fast-paced, crazy place, and people are always so rude out there. And I have a friend that's out there as a nurse right now, and she said people are coming up, applauding her, and people are being so nice on the streets, like New Yorkers that are not usually like that. So I think it's helped people realize and change in many ways. Yeah, so there's some positive things that hopefully will come to it that maybe we can improve. I mean, everything happens for a reason, so maybe this, people hopefully will take it ongoing once, hopefully they find a cure, but I hope people hold on to those things and remember what it was like during this time and how things have improved, like pollution and helping your fellow man. I mean, there's just so many simple things like that.
And what do you think the effects are on Minnesota mainly on this?
Minnesota, I was just reading yesterday, we've dropped our numbers by quite a bit by quarantining and the social distancing. That's why, I mean, it seems like we were supposed to peak more like around now, but they're pushing it out further into possibly in summer. My hope is that we just won't peak and we get it under control, that we won't see the craziest like out in New York. I think Minnesotans are Minnesota nice, and I think they're smart people, and they're outdoors people, and they'll follow, what we're doing right now with the social distancing, and staying in and washing and masking and all that. So I hope to see Minnesota. I hope it doesn't come to where it is in New York. My hope is that this is the worst it's going to get, and it's only going to improve from here.
Do you have any tips for anybody who, even any tips that could even help a tiny bit just from one person?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say avoid going out unless you have to. When you're going to stores, I mean, avoid touching your face, wash your hands, mask. Anyone, that you have in your home that is high risk, especially you people should not be going out anywhere, being very, very careful. Like my mom works in a hospital, and my dad's more high risk, so she's on leave of absence, so she's not even working in the hospital right now. That's very smart. Things like that. Just being smart and especially the teenagers, listen and don't be around your friends. Just listen and social distancing and quarantine and following the rules as far as that, and I think that will definitely improve things.
And lastly, what would you say to someone that is very scared about this and thinks that they might die, or it's going to be a big thing where they are going to get hurt, or they're very scared or stressed about it? What would you say to them?
I would say, I don't know if they're high risk or anything, but best thing to do with stress right now, just make sure you're eating well, adequate rest, meditation, yoga, exercise, taking care of your health, taking care of yourself. If you are a stressful type person, then try to breathe and release that through exercise and meditation and yoga, and just trying to, you can educate yourself too more about it. That can also try to, scare you maybe, but pray if you're a spiritual person, and just be around your family and try not to worry that it's out of our control. When things are out of your control, it's not going to help by worrying or stressing. So do what you can do to calm yourself down. If you don't want to watch the news about it because it's stressing you out, don't. Just quarantine yourself and enjoy yourself and do things that you like to do, and just take care of yourself.
And through this documentary, we were shown that show that it is a big deal, and people that are still doing their normal life and feeling like it is not a big deal that it is, and we should be quarantining ourselves. And thank you for letting me interview you.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Okay, I'm joined by fellow classmate Tommy Schmidt, and I have a couple questions for another interview. So my first question is, what do you think the outcome of this pandemic will be?
I mean, the curve is flattening right now, so I think if we keep up social distancing and being smart, I think we should get through it soon. Yeah.
What is your point of view as a student?
I mean, I guess at first I didn't necessarily think it made that much sense, but that was also like months back. But now I think it's smart that they did this. It kind of sucks, like not being in class and stuff. It's definitely, like kind of ruined my, experience. It's been like harder to learn and stuff. So.
Do you like school online school, or school in person better?
I mean, they both have their problems. Like, online school, I can kind of just, do my assignments whenever, but like, it's definitely, harder to learn what we're learning, so.
Do you think this will be as bad as the 1347 plague that killed 200 million people, or even worse?
I definitely think it won't be as bad, because, I mean, our technology within medicine has gotten so much better since then. And, also, they weren't really doing all that much to, keep other people safe like we are, so.
Are you scared or worried about the future?
Well, I'm definitely, worried about the economy, how it all dropped, but I think we should recover pretty quickly.
And lastly, are you worried that this could be one of the biggest events in the whole world that people will be talking about 10, 20, or 30 years in the future?
Oh, I definitely think people will be talking about this in the future. I mean, this is a pretty, big, moment in U.S. history. I mean, this isn't really something that's ever happened, I guess.
All right, well, that was all the questions that I need to ask you. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Yeah, no problem.
As though we've heard many interviews, we have not actually talked about the subject itself and how it started. Well, one animal implicated as an intermediary host between bats and humans is the pangolin. The International Union for Conservation of Nature says they're the most legally traded mammal in the world and are prized for their meat and claimed medical properties of their scales. As reported in Nature, pangolins were not listed on the inventory of items being sold in Wuhan. Although this omission could be a debate, it's illegal to sell them. Whenever the poor pangolin was the species at which it jumped, it's not clear. Turner says it's either mixed in something else, mixed in a poor pangolin, or it's jumped into people and evolved into people. Professor Edward Holmes of the University of Sydney was a co-author on a Nature study that was examined the likely origins of the virus. By looking at its genome on social media, he has stressed that the identity of the species that served as our immediate host for the virus is still uncertain. One statistical study looked at a characteristic of the virus that evolved to enable it to latch onto human cells. Pangolins were able to develop this characteristic, but so were cats, buffalo, cattle, goats, sheep, and penguins. Another study claimed to have ruled out pangolins as an intermediary, although together because samples of similar viruses taken from pangolins lacked a chain of amino acids seen in the virus now calculating in humans. The study Holmes worked on suggested that the scenario in which humans at Wuhan market interacted with an animal that carried the virus was only one potential version of the COVID-19 origin story. Another was the possibility that a descendant of the virus jumped into humans and then adapted as it passed from humans to humans. Once acquired, these adapters were enabled that the pandemic to take off and produce a successfully large cluster of cases to trigger the surveillance system that detected it. Steamed from animals, says the study said. Idea the link to the Wuhan market
First is confidential,
41
cannot be ruled out,
COVID-19
but a
patients
possibility seems less likely, because the
Lancet
genetic
found
material of the
27
virus
them
has
had
been
direct
found in
exposure
the
of
market
Wuhan
environment.
The same analyst found the
Orlean
first known
told
case
Guardian
of illness
Australia
did
he does not believe
This might be another
there
reason to
was
doubt the
a
established
single
story.
animal, but
Professor
adds
Stanley
that
Perham,
while polygons
a
are possible
leading
candidates, they
immunologist
are not
at
proven to be
University
the
of
key
Iowa, and an expert on
animal.
previous
I
coronavirus
suspect any
outbreaks.
evolution of the virus occurred in the intermediate animal, if there was one. There's been no submittable changes in the virus in the 3 months of the pandemic, indicating that the virus is well adapted to humans. So-called wet markets, where live animals are traded, have been implicated in previous outbreaks of coronavirus, in particular SARS. Dr. Mitchell Baker, an ampliologist at CSIRO, who studies viruses in bats, says some of the research on COVID-19 origins have stepped off from what was known from the past, but we really don't know how accurate the origin story is. She says there's some sort of connection to the Wuhan market, and there were proof exposed to the markets that were infected. Baker says what is very likely is that the virus originated in a bat. It's likely scenario, but we'll never know. The market was cleaned up quite quickly. We can only speculate. These wet markets have been identified as an issue because you do have species interacting, she says. It's an opportunity to highlight the dangers of them and an opportunity to clamp down on them. Turner adds, we found the ancestors of the virus, but have broader knowledge of the coronavirus and other species. Might give us a hint about the evolution of this thing and how it jumped. That is how the coronavirus started. We do not totally know the full story yet, but that is mostly the gist of it. We do not know what currently has started the virus, what animal or something else that started the virus, but something spread it onto humans.